The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on Samuel McKenna's weathered face as he rode his mare Belle toward the old water well on the eastern edge of his property. The heat shimmered off the red rock formations in the distance, creating ghostly mirages that danced across the desert floor. It was the kind of day that could kill a man if he wasn't careful, the kind of day that reminded Sam why most folks thought he was plumb crazy for trying to ranch in this god-forsaken stretch of territory. 3 years had passed since cholera took his wife Mary and their 2 young children, leaving him alone with nothing but cattle, sagebrush, and memories that cut deeper than any Apache blade. The ranch house, once filled with laughter and the smell of Mary's cornbread, now stood as quiet as a tomb. Sam had grown accustomed to the silence, even welcomed it. It was easier than facing the ghosts that haunted every corner of his former life. As he approached the well, something caught his eye. A dark shape crumpled near the wooden structure. At first he thought it might be a dead coyote, or perhaps some unfortunate traveler's abandoned gear. But as Belle drew closer, Sam's breath caught in his throat. It was a person, lying motionless in the sparse shade of the well's wooden frame. Sam dismounted slowly, his hand instinctively moving to the Colt 45 on his hip. In this territory, you learn to be cautious. Apache raids had been increasing lately, and tensions between the territorial government and the various tribes had reached a boiling point. Just last week, he'd heard tell of another settlement attacked, families murdered in their beds. But as he approached, Sam realized this wasn't an ambush. The figure was a young Apache girl, maybe 16 or 17 years old, wearing a torn buckskin dress stained with dried blood. Her long black hair was matted with dust and what looked like more blood. She was unconscious, her breathing so shallow Sam had to lean close to make sure she was still alive. "Jesus Christ," he muttered, kneeling beside her. A bullet wound in her left shoulder had stopped bleeding, but left her dress crusted with dried blood. Another graze along her ribs suggested she'd been running from someone, and they'd been shooting to kill. Sam's mind raced. Every sensible thought told him to mount Belle and ride away. Apache girls didn't end up shot and alone near his well by accident. This could be a trap, or she could be one of the raiders who'd been terrorizing the territory. The smart thing, the safe thing, would be to report this to the territorial marshal in town and let them sort it out. But looking down at her face, so young, so vulnerable, Sam couldn't bring himself to leave. She reminded him of his own daughter, Sarah, who would have been about this age if the cholera hadn't taken her. The girl's lips were cracked from dehydration, her skin pale beneath the bronze complexion, typical of her people. She was dying, and Sam McKenna had never been able to watch anything die without trying to help. "Damn fool," he whispered to himself as he gently lifted the girl into his arms. She was lighter than she should be, clearly half-starved as well as wounded. As he carried her toward Belle, the girl's eyes fluttered open briefly, dark eyes filled with pain and terror. She saw his face, his white skin, and tried to struggle weakly in his arms. "Shh," Sam said softly, though he doubted she understood English. "Easy now. I ain't gonna hurt you." The girl's eyes rolled back, and she lost consciousness again. Sam managed to get her positioned across Belle's saddle, then mounted behind her, keeping one arm wrapped protectively around her slight frame. The ride back to his ranch house felt like the longest 20 minutes of his life. Once inside, Sam cleared the kitchen table with one sweep of his arm, sending his breakfast dishes crashing to the floor. He laid the girl down as gently as he could, then rushed to gather medical supplies. His hands, usually steady as bedrock, trembled slightly as he heated water and gathered clean rags. As he began cleaning the bullet wound in her shoulder, the girl's eyes opened again. This time she was fully conscious and immediately tried to bolt upright. Sam pressed a gentle but firm hand to her uninjured shoulder. "Hold still now," he said, his voice as calm as he could make it. "You're hurt bad. I'm trying to help." The girl's eyes darted around the room, taking in her surroundings. When her gaze settled back on Sam's face, he saw something that broke his heart. The same look he'd seen in wounded animals, the absolute certainty that she was about to die, and the fierce determination to fight anyway. She spoke then, rapid Apache words that Sam couldn't understand, but the tone was clear enough. She was asking questions, probably demanding to know where she was and what he intended to do with her. When Sam didn't respond in her language, fear crept into her expression. "I don't speak Apache," Sam said slowly, hoping his tone would convey what his words couldn't. "But I'm not going to hurt you. You understand? No hurt." The girl stared at him for a long moment, then seemed to make some internal decision. She lay back down, though every muscle in her body remained tense, ready to fight or flee despite her injuries. As Sam continued cleaning her wounds, she watched his every movement with the intensity of a hawk watching for prey. "Name's Sam," he said, pointing to himself. "Sam McKenna," he gestured to her. "What's your name?" The girl hesitated, then spoke a single word. "Aiyana." Sam nodded. "Aiyana. That's a pretty name." He continued working on her shoulder, noting how she bit her lip to keep from crying out when he had to probe for bullet fragments. This girl had courage, he'd give her that. As the sun began to set outside his kitchen window, casting long shadows across the room, Sam couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn he never could have anticipated. He'd found an Apache girl with bullet wounds on his property, and instead of turning her into the authorities, he was playing doctor in his own kitchen. What the hell was he thinking? And more importantly, what was he going to do when she was strong enough to leave, or when someone came looking for her? The questions would have to wait. Right now, Aiyana needed his help, and Sam McKenna had never been able to turn his back on someone in need, no matter what color their skin, or which side of this damned war they were supposed to be on. 3 days had passed since Sam found Aiyana by the well, and the girl had spoken barely a dozen words in English during that time. She accepted the food he brought, simple fare of beans, hardtack, and coffee, but only after watching him eat from the same pot first. Trust, Sam realized, would be earned in small measures, if at all. The morning sun filtered through the faded curtains of what had once been Sarah's bedroom, where Sam had moved Aiyana so she could recover properly. He knocked gently on the doorframe before entering, a habit he'd developed after she'd nearly bolted through the window on the second day. "Morning," he said, setting down a plate of eggs and bacon. "How's that shoulder feeling?" Aiyana sat up carefully, her dark eyes following his every movement. The fever had broken yesterday, and the color was returning to her face, but she still watched him like a cornered wildcat. She pointed to the food and then to him, the same ritual they'd established. Sam cut a piece of bacon and ate it, then took a forkful of eggs. "Safe," he said, using one of the few English words she seemed to understand. Only then did she begin to eat, slowly and deliberately, never taking her eyes off him. As she ate, Sam noticed she was studying the room more carefully than before. Her gaze lingered on the small wooden horse he'd carved for Sarah, still sitting on the windowsill, and the faded quilt Mary had sewn during her last pregnancy. When Aiyana's eyes met his again, there was something different in them, a recognition of loss that transcended language. "You had children," she said suddenly in English, her accent thick, but the words clear. Sam's breath caught. It was the longest sentence she'd spoken since arriving. "Yes," he managed. "A daughter. About your age." Aiyana nodded slowly. "Gone?" "Sickness. 3 years ago." Sam found it difficult to meet her gaze. "What about your family?" The girl's face hardened, and for a moment Sam thought she wouldn't answer. Then she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "All gone, soldiers." The silence that followed was heavy with shared grief. Sam understood now why she'd been running, why she'd been shot. The Apache Wars had claimed another family, left another young person alone in a world that seemed determined to destroy everything they loved. "I'm sorry," Sam said, and meant it. Over the following days, their interactions gradually became less guarded. Aiyana's English improved with surprising speed. Sam realized she'd known more than she'd initially let on, probably a survival tactic. In return, she began teaching him Apache words, mostly practical things like water, tu, and food and chian. Her pronunciation lessons often ended with her covering her mouth to hide what might have been the ghost of a smile when he butchered the pronunciation. On the 6th day, Sam was repairing a broken section of fence when he heard the sound of chopping wood coming from behind the house. He found Aiyana at the wood pile, awkwardly swinging his axe with her good arm. Her shoulder was clearly still painful, but she was determined to contribute somehow. "You don't need to do that," Sam said, reaching for the axe. She pulled it away from him, her jaw set stubbornly. "I am not weak," she said in English, then added something in Apache that sounded distinctly unflattering. Sam held up his hands in surrender. "No, ma'am, I can see that, but you're still healing. How about this? You can split kindling while I handle the bigger logs." It was a compromise that seemed to satisfy her pride while acknowledging her limitations. They worked in companionable silence for the better part of an hour, and Sam found himself stealing glances at her face. When she concentrated, she bit her lower lip slightly, a gesture that reminded him painfully of Mary. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert rocks in shades of red and gold, Aiyana spoke more freely than she had since arriving. My father was war chief, she said, her voice carrying both pride and sorrow. He tried to make peace with white soldiers, believed words could stop bullets. She shook her head. Words are wind, bullets are lead. Sam poured himself another cup of coffee from the pot sitting between them. Not all white men are soldiers, he said carefully. No, Aiyana agreed. Some are ranchers who find Apache girls and do not take them to hang. She looked at him directly. Why? It was a question Sam had been asking himself for days. I don't rightly know, he admitted. Maybe because you reminded me of my Sarah. Maybe because I know what it's like to lose everything and have nowhere to go. Or maybe, Aiyana said, because you have good heart, hidden under scared white man skin. Despite everything, Sam found himself chuckling. Scared white man skin, huh? Very scared, she said solemnly, but there was definitely humor in her dark eyes now. Their moment of levity was interrupted by the distant sound of hoofbeats. Multiple horses, moving fast. Sam was on his feet instantly, his hand moving to his gun belt. Aiyana rose more slowly, but he could see the fear that had crept back into her expression. Get inside, Sam said quietly. Stay away from the windows. How many? She asked, already moving toward the door. Sam listened carefully. 4, maybe 5 riders. Could be nothing. Travelers heading to town. But even as he said it, he didn't believe it. Travelers didn't ride this hard unless they were running from something or chasing it. As the riders drew closer, Sam caught sight of them through the gathering dusk. 5 men, heavily armed, with the hard look of professional gunmen, the kind of men who made their living hunting other people. Bounty hunters. Sam's blood ran cold as he realized what this meant. Someone had put a price on Aiyana's head, and these men had tracked her here. The girl he'd nursed back to health, who'd just begun to trust him, was worth money to these men, probably more money than Sam saw in a year of ranching. The lead rider, a lean man with a grey beard and cold eyes, called out as they approached the house, "Evening, friend. We're looking for someone who might have passed this way. Apache girl, about 16. There's a substantial reward for information leading to her capture." Sam stepped down from the porch, keeping his movements casual despite the tension coiling in his chest. Behind him, he knew Aiyana was listening to every word, understanding that her brief sanctuary was about to end. "Can't say I've seen anyone like that," Sam replied, his voice steady. "What's she wanted for?" The grey-bearded man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Murder, among other things. Killed a family of settlers near Tucson. Territory's offering $500 for her, dead or alive." $500. More money than Sam had seen since before Mary died. Enough to fix everything that was broken on his ranch, maybe even expand his herd. All he had to do was step aside and let these men take a scared, wounded girl who'd lost everything she'd ever loved. "Like I said," Sam repeated, "haven't seen anyone like that around here." The bounty hunter's smile faded. "Mind if we take a look around, just to be thorough?" Sam's hand moved closer to his gun. "Actually, I do mind. This is private property, and I don't take kindly to armed strangers wanting to search my home." The tension in the air became thick enough to cut with a knife. The 5 men spread out slightly, their hands moving to their weapons. Sam realized he was about to face the biggest decision of his life, and whatever choice he made would likely determine whether he lived to see another sunrise. From inside the house, he heard the soft creak of floorboards as Aiyana moved away from the window. She was smart enough to know what was coming, and brave enough to face it. The least Sam could do was give her a fighting chance. The tension stretched like a taut wire between Sam and the 5 mounted men. The leader, who'd introduced himself as Ezra Blackwood, sat his horse with the easy confidence of a man who'd killed before and expected to do so again. His pale eyes never left Sam's face, reading every micro-expression like a gambler studying cards. "Now see here, McKenna," Blackwood said, his voice carrying the false friendliness of a snake oil salesman. "We ain't looking for trouble, just doing our civic duty, bringing in a dangerous criminal. Surely you can understand that." "And what I understand," Sam replied, his hand resting casually near his Colt, "is that you're trespassing on my land. And what I don't understand is how you know my name when I never gave it." Blackwood's smile widened, showing yellowed teeth. "Oh, we know all about you, Sam McKenna. Irish immigrant, lost his family to cholera, been living alone out here like some kind of hermit. Man in your position might be tempted by $500, especially when times are hard." One of the other riders, a younger man with a scar running from his left ear to his jaw, spat tobacco juice into the dust. "Hell, Ezra, maybe he's already got her stashed away somewhere, planning to turn her in himself for the reward." Sam's jaw tightened. "I told you I haven't seen any Apache girl. Now I'm telling you to get off my property before I decide you're here to rustle my cattle." "Cattle rustling's a hanging offense," said another bounty hunter, a heavy-set man with arms like tree trunks. "Might want to be careful what you accuse folks of. Might want to be careful who you threaten on their own land," Sam shot back. From inside the house came the soft sound of a door closing, probably Aiyana moving to the back of the house, maybe preparing to run if things went bad. Sam hoped she had enough sense to get as far away as possible if shooting started. Blackwood raised a hand to quiet his men. "Easy now, boys. Mr. McKenna here is just being cautious. Can't fault a man for that." He leaned forward in his saddle. "But see, Sam, here's the thing. We tracked that Apache girl to this area, found blood on some rocks about a mile from your well, fresh tracks leading this direction. Now, either she passed through here and you somehow missed a wounded Indian girl stumbling around your property, or what?" Sam asked, though he knew where this was heading. "Or you're lying to us. And lying to lawmen in pursuit of a fugitive is a crime itself." Blackwood's hand moved to rest on his gun butt. "Might be we need to arrest you too, take you back to town for questioning." The scarred rider laughed. "Of course, accidents happen when transporting prisoners, especially ones who resist arrest." Sam felt sweat trickle down his back, despite the evening chill. These weren't lawmen. They were killers with bounty papers, and they'd murder him without a second thought if it served their purposes. The smart play would be to step aside, let them search, claim ignorance when they found Aiyana. But looking at their faces, Sam knew they wouldn't be taking any prisoners back to town alive. "You boys got papers showing you're legally deputized?" Sam asked, playing for time. Blackwood reached into his vest and pulled out a folded document. "Territorial warrant, signed by Judge Morrison himself, gives us full authority to pursue and apprehend one Aiyana, daughter of Chief Running Bear, for the murder of the Patterson family near Tucson." The name hit Sam like a physical blow. Patterson family. He remembered hearing about that massacre, an entire family of settlers killed in their beds, including 2 young children. If Aiyana had really done that, but looking at her over the past week, seeing her gentleness with the injured bird she'd found, her careful way of handling Mary's quilt, Sam couldn't believe it. "Even if that paper's real," Sam said, "it doesn't give you the right to search my property without probable cause." "Probable cause?" The heavy-set bounty hunter laughed. "Hell, we got blood trail leading right to your front door. And I told you I haven't seen anyone." Blackwood's patience was clearly wearing thin. "McKenna, I'm giving you one last chance to do this the easy way. We know she's here. We found her horse about half a mile back, hidden in a wash. Apache pony with U.S. Army brand, stolen during a raid 3 weeks ago. Horse was favoring its left front hoof, same limp we've been tracking for 2 days." Sam's mind raced. If they'd found Aiyana's horse, they had solid proof she'd been in the area. His denials were starting to sound hollow, even to himself. "Look," Blackwood continued, his voice taking on a reasonable tone, "maybe you found her hurt and took pity. Can't blame a man for Christian charity, but she's a killer, Sam. She murdered innocent folks, including children. You turn her over now. Nobody has to know you were hiding her. Hell, you might even get part of the reward for cooperating." Before Sam could respond, a voice spoke from the shadows beside the house. "I speak for myself." Aiyana stepped into the lamplight spilling from the porch, her chin raised defiantly. She'd changed into one of Mary's old dresses. It was too big for her slight frame, but it made her look even younger and more vulnerable. In her hands, she carried Sam's spare rifle, though she held it pointed at the ground. "Jesus Christ," breathed the scarred rider. "There she is." Blackwood's eyes lit up like a man who'd just struck gold. "Well, well. Saves us the trouble of tearing apart McKenna's house." He started to dismount. "Easy now, girl. Nobody needs to get hurt here." "Stay on horse," Aiyana said in English, raising the rifle slightly. "I did not kill Patterson family." "Course you didn't, sweetheart," Blackwood said mockingly. "Apache never hurt nobody, right, boys?" The other bounty hunters chuckled, but Sam noticed they were all sliding their hands toward their weapons, 5 against 2, and one of the 2 was a wounded girl. The odds weren't good. "She's telling the truth," Sam said, surprised by his own certainty. "I've been around killers before. She ain't one." "Touching," said the heavy-set man. "White man standing up for his Apache squaw." "Watch your mouth," Sam snarled, his hand dropping to his gun. "Now we're getting somewhere," Blackwood said. "You sweet on her, McKenna? That why you're protecting a murderer?" Aiyana stepped closer to Sam, and he could feel the tension radiating from her small frame. "I tell you truth," she said, addressing Blackwood directly. "I was with my people when Patterson family died. We were 3 days' ride north, gathering roots for winter. But soldiers came to our camp anyway. Said we did killing. Started shooting before my father could speak. Convenient story, Blackwood replied. Dead chiefs can't contradict you. My father not dead, Aiyana said quietly. He escaped with some warriors, but soldiers killed many. Women, children, old ones who could not run fast enough. Sam felt something cold settle in his stomach. If what she was saying was true, then the territorial government had massacred innocent Apache based on false accusations, and now they were trying to cover it up by hunting down the survivors. Don't matter what you say, girl, Blackwood said, swinging down from his horse. We got our orders and our money. You're coming with us, one way or another. No, Sam said, stepping in front of Aiyana. She's under my protection. Your protection? Blackwood laughed. You against 5 armed men? That's mighty noble, McKenna, but it's also mighty stupid. The bounty hunters began spreading out, surrounding the porch. Sam realized with growing dread that there was no way out of this that didn't end in blood. He'd made his choice the moment he'd nursed Aiyana back to health, and now he'd have to live or die with the consequences. Last chance, McKenna, Blackwood called out, his gun now in his hand. Step aside and nobody has to die tonight except the Apache girl. Sam drew his Colt in one smooth motion, the familiar weight of the weapon steadying his nerves. Then I guess somebody's going to die tonight. Question is, who's it going to be? The crack of gunfire shattered the desert evening like thunder. Sam dove sideways, pulling Aiyana with him as Blackwood's bullet splintered the porch post, where his head had been a split second before. They rolled behind the water trough as more shots rang out, the bounty hunters spreading to surround the house. Get to the house! Sam shouted over the gunfire, returning fire at the scarred rider who was trying to flank them from the left. His shot went wide, but it forced the man to duck behind Sam's own fence posts. Aiyana scrambled toward the front door, keeping low as bullets whined overhead. One shot shattered the window beside the door, sending glass cascading to the porch floor. Sam followed, firing twice more to keep the bounty hunters pinned down, long enough for them to reach cover. Once inside, Sam slammed the door and threw the heavy wooden bar across it. The house had been built with Indian raids in mind. Thick adobe walls, small windows, and solid oak doors. It would hold for a while, but 5 determined men with plenty of ammunition could eventually blast their way in. Windows, Sam said tersely, checking his remaining bullets. We need to cover all approaches. Aiyana nodded, moving to the kitchen window that faced the back of the house. She handled the rifle like she knew how to use it, Sam noticed, probably learned from her father before the massacre. A voice called out from the darkness. McKenna, you're only making this harder on yourself. Send out the girl and we'll let you live. Like hell you will, Sam muttered, peering through the front window. He could see muzzle flashes in the darkness as the bounty hunters positioned themselves behind whatever cover they could find. His own woodpile, the barn, the corral fence. They're trying to surround us, Aiyana said from the kitchen. 2 men moving around back. Sam cursed under his breath. The house was defensible, but not against 5 men who could attack from all sides. How many bullets you got for that rifle? Maybe 20, she replied. You? Sam checked his gun belt. 15 for the Colt, plus what's in my rifle. Might be enough if we're careful. He looked at her seriously. Aiyana, you don't have to do this. There's still time for you to slip out the back, head for the hills. She gave him a look that was equal parts gratitude and exasperation. And leave you to die alone. My father taught me many things, but running from friends was not one of them. The sound of breaking glass came from the bedroom. Someone had shot out Sarah's window. Sam moved toward it, but Aiyana was already there, firing a quick shot into the darkness. A man's curse suggested she'd at least come close to hitting something. Nice shooting, Sam said. Apache women learn to fight when Apache men cannot protect them, she replied grimly. They settled into a defensive pattern, moving between windows as the bounty hunters probed for weaknesses. The attackers were professionals. They didn't waste ammunition or expose themselves unnecessarily. Instead, they kept up a steady pressure, forcing Sam and Aiyana to stay alert and burn through their limited supply of bullets. As the night wore on, the house began to show the effects of the siege. Bullet holes peppered the walls, furniture had been overturned to create better cover, and the smell of gunpowder hung heavy in the air. Sam's shoulder ached from the constant recoil of his rifle, and he could see exhaustion beginning to show in Aiyana's movements. McKenna, Blackwood's voice carried clearly in the still night air. You killed my cousin Billy. Now this is personal. Sam didn't remember hitting anyone, but in the chaos of gunfire it was possible. Either way, it meant the bounty hunters wouldn't be offering any more deals. This would end with someone dead. Around midnight, the shooting stopped. An eerie silence settled over the ranch, broken only by the distant howl of a coyote. Sam and Aiyana waited tensely, knowing this was either a retreat or preparation for something worse. "They're up to something," Sam whispered. Aiyana sniffed the air, her expression changing to one of alarm. "Smoke," she said. Sam caught it too, the acrid smell of burning wood. Through the kitchen window he could see an orange glow beginning to flicker near the barn. The bastards were trying to burn them out. "They're setting fires," he said, his heart sinking. "Trying to force us into the open." The glow spread quickly, too quickly. They must have doused the barn with lamp oil or kerosene. Within minutes, flames were licking at the roof, casting dancing shadows across the yard and illuminating the bounty hunters' positions. "House is next," Aiyana said matter-of-factly. Sam knew she was right. Once the barn was fully engulfed, they'd throw torches onto the house roof. The adobe walls wouldn't burn, but the wooden beams and roof would go up like tinder in this dry climate. They'd be forced to run into the open, where the bounty hunters would be waiting. "There's a root cellar," Sam said suddenly, "under the kitchen floor. Mary used it for storing preserves. Might be we could hide there until they move on." "They will not move on," Aiyana said quietly. $500 is too much money. They will wait." She was right, of course. Professional bounty hunters didn't give up when this much money was at stake. They'd camp on his property for weeks if necessary. The sound of crackling flames grew louder, and Sam could see burning embers beginning to fall near the house. Soon the roof would catch fire, and their sanctuary would become a death trap. "Then we make our stand," Sam said, checking his ammunition one last time. "When they come for us, we make them pay dear for it." Aiyana moved closer to him, her dark eyes reflecting the orange glow from outside. "Sam McKenna," she said formally, "you could have taken bounty money, could have lived safe life. Why do you choose to die with Apache Girl?" Sam considered the question, watching flames consume everything he'd built since Mary's death. "Maybe because some things matter more than staying alive. Maybe because I got tired of being alone with my ghosts." He looked at her. "Or maybe because you remind me that there's still some good left in this world worth fighting for." A burning piece of debris landed on the roof with a thud, and within seconds, smoke began seeping through the ceiling. Their time was running out. "When we go out there," Sam said, "we go together. Watch each other's backs." "Together," Aiyana agreed. Outside, Blackwood's voice called out with savage satisfaction, "Time's up, McKenna. Come out now or burn alive in there." Sam checked his Colt one last time, said a silent prayer for Mary and Sarah, and prepared to face whatever waited in the firelit darkness beyond his door. He'd made his choice, and now he'd see it through to the end, whatever that might be. The roof beam above them groaned ominously as flames ate through the wood. It was time to go. The front door exploded outward as Sam kicked it open, both barrels of his shotgun blazing into the firelit darkness. Aiyana burst through beside him, her rifle cracking as she put a bullet through the shoulder of the scarred bounty hunter who'd been approaching the porch. The man screamed and spun, dropping his weapon. "Move!" Sam shouted, grabbing Aiyana's arm as they sprinted toward the stone well, the only solid cover between the burning house and the open desert. Bullets whined around them. One so close, Sam felt the heat as it passed his ear. They dove behind the well as the heavy-set bounty hunter's rifle boomed, sending stone chips flying. Sam rolled, came up firing, and put 2 bullets center mass into the big man's chest. The bounty hunter toppled backward, his rifle clattering into the dirt. "2 down," Aiyana called out, working the lever of her rifle. 3 left. But their position was precarious. The well provided cover from the front, but Blackwood and his remaining men could circle around and catch them in crossfire. The burning house behind them lit up the entire area like a stage, making them perfect targets. "There!" Aiyana pointed to muzzle flashes near the barn. Behind the water trough, Sam fired twice in that direction, more to keep them pinned than with any hope of hitting anything in the dancing shadows and smoke. His ammunition was running dangerously low, maybe 6 bullets left in the Colt and 2 shells for the shotgun. A bullet spanged off the well's metal pump handle, and Sam caught a glimpse of Blackwood moving between the corral posts, trying to get an angle on them. The bounty hunter's face was a mask of rage and determination. This had stopped being about money and become about revenge. "McKenna," Blackwood's voice carried over the crackling flames. "You killed 3 good men. I'm going to gut shoot you and watch you die slow." "Come and try it," Sam shouted back, though he knew their situation was desperate. They were pinned down, low on ammunition, and silhouetted against the fire. It was only a matter of time before Blackwood and his remaining men worked their way around to a killing position. That's when Sam heard it, a sound that made his blood run cold. More hoofbeats, approaching fast from the east. Reinforcements. His heart sank as he realized Blackwood must have sent word to other bounty hunters in the area. They were about to be overwhelmed, but Aiyana's reaction was different. Her head snapped up and a strange expression crossed her face. Not fear, but something like hope mixed with disbelief. "Listen," she whispered urgently. "Those horses, they have no shoes." Unshod horses meant Apache riders. Sam felt a flicker of hope as he caught the significance. But hope turned to confusion as war cries echoed across the desert. Not the attack cries of raiders, but something else entirely. Blackwood must have heard it too, because his shooting stopped abruptly. In the sudden quiet, Sam could make out at least a dozen riders approaching at full gallop, their war paint visible in the firelight. "What the hell?" Blackwood's voice was cut off by the thunder of hooves as the Apache riders swept into the ranch yard like a whirlwind of death. Sam saw Blackwood try to run, but an Apache warrior rode him down, striking him from horseback with a war club. The bounty hunter dropped like a stone. The scarred man, wounded and trying to crawl away, didn't make it 10 feet before another warrior's lance found him. In less than a minute, it was over. The surviving bounty hunters were dead, and Apache warriors were dismounting all around the burning ranch. Sam kept his gun ready, unsure whether he and Aiyana had just been rescued or were about to face a different kind of death. An older Apache man, his face painted for war but his bearing unmistakably that of a chief, approached the well. His eyes found Aiyana, and Sam saw something remarkable happen. The fierce war chief's expression melted into one of pure relief and joy. "Father," Aiyana whispered, rising slowly from behind the well. The chief, Running Bear, Sam realized, stepped forward and embraced his daughter, speaking rapidly in Apache. Other warriors gathered around, their painted faces showing similar relief. These weren't raiders, they were a rescue party. After a long moment, Running Bear turned to face Sam, his dark eyes unreadable. Sam tensed, unsure what to expect. He'd helped an Apache girl, but that didn't necessarily make him a friend to her people. Aiyana spoke to her father in Apache, gesturing toward Sam several times. The chief listened intently, occasionally glancing at Sam with what might have been growing respect. When she finished, Running Bear studied Sam for a long moment. "My daughter tells me you protected her," the chief said in heavily accented but clear English. "Fed her, healed her wounds, chose to fight for her when other white men came with guns and gold." "She needed help," Sam said simply. "Any decent person would have done the same." Running Bear's weathered face showed the ghost of a smile. "Many white men passed her by before you found her. Some saw her, chose to ride on. You are not like other white men, Sam McKenna." "How did you find us?" Sam asked. "We have been tracking the men who killed our people," Running Bear explained. "When we heard of bounty hunters seeking my daughter, we followed, found dead horse thieves, followed more tracks, heard gunfire." He gestured toward the burning house. "Saw fire against sky." One of the younger warriors approached and spoke to Running Bear in Apache. The chief nodded and turned back to Sam. "My son says we should leave quickly. More soldiers may come with dawn." Sam looked around at what remained of his ranch. The house was beyond saving. The barn was a pile of glowing embers, and 5 dead men lay scattered around his property. Even if he wanted to stay, the territorial authorities would never believe his version of events. "I don't have anywhere to go," Sam said quietly. Aiyana spoke to her father again, more urgently this time. Running Bear listened, then looked back at Sam with something that might have been approval. "My daughter says you have lost everything for her people," the chief said. "This creates debt. Apache always pay debts." He paused, studying Sam's face in the firelight. "You have no family, no tribe. Perhaps you would consider joining ours." Sam stared at him, hardly believing what he was hearing. "You're asking me to come with you to live with your people? White man who fights for Apache girl, who chooses honor over gold," Running Bear said solemnly. "Such a man has place among Apache, if he wishes." Sam looked at Aiyana, who was watching him intently. Her dark eyes held a question, and maybe a hope he was afraid to interpret. "The soldiers will never stop hunting you," Sam said. "Any of you. Is that the kind of life you want me to share? Is life you had before better?" Running Bear asked. "Alone with ghosts and sorrow." Sam considered this as he watched his house burn. Everything that had tied him to his old life was being consumed by the flames. Mary's quilt, Sarah's toys, 3 years of memories both precious and painful. Maybe it was time to let the past burn away and try to build something new. What about the territorial government? They'll never stop looking for Aiyana. Let them look, Running Bear said with quiet pride. Apache know desert better than any white soldier. We will disappear like smoke, go where they cannot follow. Find new place to live free. As the first pale light of dawn began to creep across the eastern horizon, Sam made his decision. There was nothing left for him in the white man's world. No family, no home, no future that didn't involve answering uncomfortable questions about dead bounty hunters. I'll need to bury these men first, Sam said. Even bounty hunters deserve that much. Running Bear nodded approvingly. Apache honor dead enemies, shows respect for spirits. As Sam began the grim task of dragging bodies away from the fire, Aiyana approached him. She'd changed back into Apache clothing that one of the warriors had brought, but she still wore Mary's silver locket, the one Sam had given her when she'd admired it. You do not have to come, she said quietly. Father offers because of honor, but choice is yours. Sam paused in his work, looking at this remarkable young woman who'd changed his life simply by collapsing near his well. What do you want me to do? I want, she said carefully, for you to choose what makes you happy. You have been alone too long, Sam McKenna. Maybe time to find new family. Sam smiled, the first genuine smile he'd felt since Mary died. Maybe it is at that. By the time the sun was fully up, 5 graves marked the spot where Sam's ranch had been. The Apache warriors had helped with the burial, showing the same respect for the dead that Running Bear had promised. As they prepared to leave, Sam took one last look at the ruins of his old life. No regrets? Aiyana asked, settling onto the Apache pony one of the warriors had brought for Sam. Sam mounted the unfamiliar horse, feeling the beginning of something he hadn't experienced in years. Hope for the future. None, he said. Let's go home. As the small band of Apache riders disappeared into the vastness of the Arizona desert, the morning wind scattered the ashes of Sam McKenna's past across the empty land. Behind them, only the stone well remained standing, a monument to the place where 2 people from different worlds had found each other and discovered that some bonds transcend the barriers of race, culture, and old hatreds. In the distance, a hawk circled lazily in the thermals rising from the cooling ashes, its cry echoing across the desert like a song of freedom.